Welcome to the Livfiit Listens podcast, a safe space of growth, personal development, and overall wellness with your host, Olivia Catania. Diving into the realms of all things health, conscious living, mental expansion, and much more, this podcast is designed to help you evolve into your best self and live fit. Let's get into the show. Hi, hello, how's it going? How goes it? How's she doing? All right. Be honest, do you guys like kind of already make a prejudgment of like, okay, this is what mood Liv is in depending on how I introduce the episode? Because I feel like I do that to myself. Like depending on what comes out when I hit the record button, I'm like, oh, okay, this is the vibe we're on. Because sometimes I don't know until we start. Like right now, I really had no clue it was about to come out. And now it came out and now I'm like, okay, this is what we're working with today. How's everyone doing though? I hope everyone is doing well. I know I referenced Princess Diaries last episode, and I know I always talk about my hair. Like, I'm well aware. I feel like I start every episode with the preface of my energy levels, mood, and then my hair. But like, I just can't help it because I feel like every time I sit down to record a podcast, like my hair, it's just a bad hair day / like I'm literally nearing day 4, 5, 6 of unwashed hair. It's like my hair is either just atrocious or it's like on the way out, you know what I mean? And right now I feel like I look like Mia Thermopolis from the Princess Diaries before she got the makeover. If you're watching on YouTube, like I feel like you know what I'm talking about. Like my hair is a little bit frizz sauce right now. And it's like I want to be put together for the podcast, but this like of all the things that all of the content I make, like this is the one that I'm like, oh yeah, I could really see this being more like put together, blah, blah, blah. It's not it. It doesn't happen for me. Also, you guys, I got like a computer stand and I didn't get it with the intention to like use it for podcasting. I got it for when I'm editing my YouTube videos because I will spend hours hunched over my computer like a gremlin close to my screen, like because trying to see everything. Like my computer is just small, so compared to like let's say my brother's really into videography and cinematography, and so he has like a huge desktop with a monitor and stuff, like an extra monitor because he's always looking at his computer, so it's like everything is bigger, so it's just easier to work on. He has like a mouse, all this sort of stuff. I'm like on my little teeny laptop with still the trackpad, like everything is in one little screen. So we've been working on kind of up leveling my setup to help with my efficiency and comfortability with editing and everything. So that was kind of a side tangent, but so that's why I got the computer stand, was to help keep my head and chest and like my posture up while I'm working all day. Like I'm just looking straight ahead at the computer instead of looking down. And I got it from Amazon, by the way, in case you're curious and investing in one. I totally would. It's not even an investment. I got this for like $20-$30 and it's such high quality and I love it, but I'll link it in my Amazon storefront, which you can access in the show notes or in the description box. And this was just like life-changing. Like, especially now, I'm able to now, because I'll like have my show notes up like on the outline up on my computer when I'm recording. So like I'll look at the camera and then like have to look down at the computer. But now my head is just on a swivel. I'm just like camera lens back to the computer level. Like everything is just so great from this one purchase. Like I feel so much more put together, established, organized, and comfortable from getting a computer stand. So if you work a lot on your computer, this is your sign to get a computer stand. The one that I have spins like 360 and you can put the computer like higher or lower, and then you can angle what degree the computer sits at so it like fits your hand when you're typing. Honestly, revolutionary, you guys. So for my gratitude for today, speaking of my brother, I'm thankful for my brother because if you've seen my recent vlog, you know that my brother and I have like joined forces where we've made a quote unquote, this is what we're calling it, a community office downstairs, pretty much like you're just in the middle of the house, but like I'm straight up set up on our kitchen table and Luke has like the actual desk that we have downstairs. And I just am so thankful for him for so many different reasons. Like he's been so helpful for me lately with just helping me like organize my life and the more like tangible business parts of Livfiit. Like he's been helping me tenfold. Like I said, he's really into cinematography and videography, so he really knows what he's talking about just in terms of overall tech, like not only just cameras, but just tech. And he's like a very organized person and like really sets up his processes to be like thoroughly correct and efficient. So he's just been helping me so much with getting organized. Like I said, he's like giving me a whole new computer setup. He's giving me like a mouse to use, his monitor, just all this stuff. He set me up. He's been helping me so much with forming like an LLC and just ways to be more organized in terms of working with brands and all this sort of stuff. And my brother and I, he's my only brother, the only boy we have in the family, and him and I go through waves of like being the same person. We're glued to each other's hips, like always huge smiles when we see each other, like always messing with each other. And then we go through periods where it's like, I literally can't be around you right now. Like, you are toxic to me. So it's like, we really go through waves. Like this past winter, we went through like a month or two span where we like barely spoke to each other, but now we're like literal two peas in a pod. We're more often than not the two peas in a pod. It's kind of definitely more rare for us to not be on the same page, but lately we've been like super aligned in every aspect, and I just am really thankful to have a brother and just thankful for everything he's been doing for me. And I'm just thankful for him and I's relationship, and he's such a great role model for me, and I really admire him, and he just really inspires me to be better, and we just really feed off of each other's good energy when we're both in a good, like honestly, when him and I are both in a good place at the same time, we're electric. And I mean like both in a good mental space. And I think that's why we're working so well right now. It's like he's so much happier than he's been. I still do feel happy right now, and I feel inspired to improve. And so when we're both on that same page, like we're unstoppable, and I love it so much. So I'm really feeling really thankful for him, especially within this past week. Now, getting into the episode, I purposely titled this Healing Your Relationship with Social Media, because I feel like the typical phrase with that is like healing your relationship with food. And I just feel like, honestly, it's similar, because basically what I want to be talking about today is kind of seeing social media in a different light and perspective, in hopes to help you kind of find peace with it. And I know this is going to be a really interesting topic. I know there's going to be a lot of different opinions with what I have to say, and that's totally okay. I always, want to stress more than anything, like if my truth, like you don't need to force my truth to fit yours. Like if it doesn't resonate, that is a-okay. I hope you guys always feel safe with that throughout any episode that I bring out. Like I'm never trying to force feed my beliefs or my perspectives on anyone, especially if it doesn't feel good. Like I want these episodes to help you see things in a different way, and if it feels good to you, accept that, take on that viewpoint, or help to open up your mind in a different way, or help to provide you some clarity, things like that. Again, only if you see fit and if it makes you feel good. If it's not making you feel good inside, don't force yourself to take on this viewpoint and accept it if it doesn't feel right to you. So I just have been on both sides of social media, obviously, like throughout my life. I started Livfiit, even though no one knew who I was, but like I started pursuing Livfiit when I was a senior in high school, very loosely. Like the last few months of senior year, I started it, but that was very much so like a personal kind of hobby situation. But still, like that's when I started everything. So that was about like 5-6 years ago now. And so I've been on the content creator side, even if at like a super teeny tiny scale, but I've also very much so been on the consumer side. Like I was super heavily, even more so than I am right now, tenfold on the consumer side of social media before I started Livfiit, right? Because I wasn't creating my own content at all to be seen publicly. So I was purely in that consumer mode. So I feel like just being on both sides has given me a different perspective of each, I guess. And I've also spent a ton of time kind of playing limbo between the two. Like, am I just purely a consumer? Am I a creator in the space, when I was kind of trying to gain traction with Livfiit and build a community and really have my truth be heard and tell my story and all that sort of stuff? And especially being full force in the social media space now, I definitely talk to a lot of people about social media, what their viewpoint is and their relationship with it. So I just thought it would be really interesting to talk about, because also social media is literally taking over our world right now, and there's so many different opinions about it. Like I'm saying, it makes people feel really freaking shitty sometimes, and I just kind of wanted to offer this to kind of offer a different perspective. And I know this is a super sensitive topic, and I don't want to seem naive, ignorant, or like not empathetic to other people and their situations. Like, and I know that I'm not going to be able to cover all areas in this episode, right? Like I'm not going to pretend like I'm going to solve the problem in this one episode. I know there's going to be so many different arguments and sides and perspectives that you can look at this from, but I guess I'm just going to share what seems most relevant to me and what I think are the main pillars when it comes to people's relationship with social media, in hopes to help that. And basically, I just want everything that I'm about to everything that's about to be said to be taken respectfully and with empathy towards everyone's personal relationship and struggle and situation with their own social media platform. And like I said, my intention with this episode is just to hopefully help bring you guys peace when it comes to social media, a little bit more peace with social media, and see it in more of like an overall positive light, because I feel like especially in today's day and age, at least when I hear about it being spoken about publicly, like I just constantly hear about people ragging on it and they're like, this is so detrimental to my mental health, and I just personally don't agree. And so I guess I just want to share my side. I feel like I just spent 10 minutes of disclaimers, but here we are. So the reason why I wanted to do this episode, or what really sparked this, was because I actually just had a conversation about this with someone yesterday, and then this morning I proceeded to have a TikTok video pop up, and it was kind of one of those, I haven't watched it, which I really should, but like the documentary on Netflix, A Social Dilemma, how it kind of says, it's kind of like a full acting depiction of how social media impacts people in their real life, day-to-day life. And so this video on TikTok, of course I lost it. I thought I saved it, but I think I hit save twice to make sure I saved it. But when I hit it the second time, I unsaved. So good job, Liv. But because I went to try to find it and it wasn't there anymore. So basically the video was just kind of going through the girl from day-to-day lives, and like it was kind of a narration of what was going on in her head, and she like saw someone on social media in a bikini, and she was like, this girl has so many bikinis, like I haven't gotten a new bikini since last year, like because I can't afford it. I need to be doing things that are cooler, like no one wants to follow me because there's nothing to follow, like my life is boring, things like that. Or like her body is perfect, like I could never look like that. Or how did someone pay to afford to have this new Lamborghini, like that's never going to be me, like I'm way too poor. Or look at how someone loves their life so much, like I'm going to a job that is just completely normal and mundane, like I'm living the same day over and over again, like I'll never be able to live their life. That was like the whole video was like going through, and kind of the intention was like, this is how detrimental social media can be to your life. And it was like this wasn't like a commercial or like an ad on TikTok, like it was someone's video that they created, which again, all due respect, I don't mean to come at them. Guys, I just don't want to do disclaimers 14,000 times. I hope you guys know what my intention is with the things that I'm saying. But anyways, I didn't necessarily agree with the video, and that is what sparked this episode, really, for the most part. So I think the video spoke perfectly on what I think society's and people's perceptions of social media is, or like totally speaks on the stigma of social media. It makes people feel inferior. People are always comparing their lives. People, feel like they're not good enough. They're not pretty enough. They're not perfect enough. They're not rich enough. They're not getting paid enough. Their significant other doesn't treat them as well as what they're seeing online. All this sort of stuff. And I think, is there value to it? Kinda. I think more so, this is what I'd like to say, that's the reason for things. That's a reason why social media can be challenging, but it's not an excuse. And I think there's a very big difference between reasoning and excuse. I think a reason explains why it's happening, but an excuse, in my opinion, is, I guess it doesn't make it right, or it doesn't, like, I almost kind of want to say it's not valid, if that makes sense. Like, it's kind of like, okay, that was someone's reasoning, I get where it came from, but that doesn't make it right. That doesn't justify it. That's the word. Also, you guys, every time I record these and then I'm editing, I always find different words or more things that I want to say at the end of it. So I know editing that, I'm going to be like, this is the word, and I didn't think about it until now. But anyways, I just think overall, like, the problem with social media is everyone's perception about social media. And you could argue this about everything. And so that's why I feel really passionate about it when it comes to social media, because I feel like I preach the same narrative with pretty much every other principle of life. And I always say, like, this was a quote, I think it's by Shakespeare: nothing is either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And that completely speaks on the fact that it is our perception. It's how we are consuming the content, the things that we are seeing on social media, and the way we're digesting it and the takeaway that we are taking from it. That is literally what makes up our whole entire reality. I've spoke about this in other episodes. Like, nothing really is honestly the truth, because everything is always getting filtered through our perceptions, our beliefs, our programmings, all this sort of stuff that we rarely see things as they are, because it's always going through a filter of I guess not who we are, but what we've learned. And like I'm saying, societal programming, subconscious beliefs, all this sort of stuff, our opinions, our thoughts, what we were taught, all this sort of stuff. So it's truly our perception that paints something either in a positive or a negative light. And I always say as well, two people could be presented with the same exact situation, but for someone it could be the best news ever, and for someone else it could be the worst day of their life receiving that news based on their own current situation, their circumstance, what they believe about said situation, what is good for them in their own situation, their limiting beliefs, their subconscious beliefs, what they were taught, etc., etc. So for me, I find that I'm the most, this is going to trigger a lot of people. Honestly, I should have put this disclaimer in the beginning of the episode. Everything that I'm kind of about to get into right now in this section might make people feel bothered / call them out and make them feel triggered. Again, I mean this respectfully. I'm not trying to attack everyone personally. We've all been there. I've been there. I continue to be there. Like I catch myself in these exact situations that I'm about to list out. It's okay, like we're human. I'm just trying to bring awareness to it to kind of wake us all up a little bit, because I find I'm the most triggered by social media. I'm the most bothered. I get the most upset when I am acting out of my lower self, out of a low vibrational state, or when I'm acting out of my ego. Essentially, those are all the three things. All three of those things are the same thing, but just to word it differently for you, it's always when I'm stuck in my ego. That's when I find myself getting really put down by social media. And I'm actually really excited I'm doing this episode, because I know it's a little bit different than what I normally talk about, but it's not, because the more I'm getting into this episode, the more it's tying in so many of the things that I preach on this podcast and putting it into practice in real life. And this is why I have the episodes that I do, and I speak about the things that I do in my podcast episodes, because there's so many, the things I speak about in my podcast episodes are that underlying foundation that is underneath any other surface problem that we encounter in the day-to-day. Like if you keep stripping it back, at the core, it's about those concepts that I speak about in my episodes. And this is a perfect example that the problem that people have with social media that we're getting into, in order to heal that and where it's stemming from, goes back to a deeper issue, a deeper mental standpoint that you're at. That is what we digest and dissect in our previous episodes of this podcast. So you guys know the ego, right? I've spoke about one of my first episodes. It might have been episode 3, the higher self versus the ego. Still one of my favorite and best episodes to date, the best taken by you guys as well. You guys have loved that episode. The ego is you acting from a state of lower vibration. The ego is kind of when you get too caught in the mind and you're stuck in your 3D. And the ego is where a lot of that negative self-talk happens. Your ego wants you to stay in a place that is comfortable and safe. The ego is where you're acting out of when you're kind of getting crippled by fear, whether that's fear of change, fear of breaking out of your comfort zone, fear of trying something new, fear of wearing that shirt even though you might be judged for it. That's all the ego. It doesn't want you to grow, adapt, change, flow like your higher self does, or your true authentic self. It wants to kind of constrict you and keep you in this box, and it talks down to you. That's what the ego is. A lot of people think the ego is when you're conceited or think you're better than everyone else. That's a part of the ego, but it's a part of the ego because that's stemming from insecurity, which is that ego, which is what I'm talking about, right? So with that, right, insecurity is a huge reason why people feel so triggered by social media. And this is where we're going to get into the nitty gritty. I think kind of going back to the nothing is good or bad thinking makes it so, and it's our perception is what makes social media bad for our society. It's that same thing. It's because so many people, the real pandemic of our common normal day society is the pandemic of insecurity and like lack of self-love. And I just got the chills. Like it's so, I don't know why that's making me emotional because it's sad. Like it makes me sad, but it's really, really true. And I just think that's the underlying issue that makes people have such a problem with social media, because it's triggering and those insecurities. It's kind of putting salt on the wound. It's poking the bear. It's poking the bruise. And it's kind of makes everyone feel a little bit bothered and rubbed the wrong way constantly. And that's why I think it's not social media that is always the problem. It's us as the consumer that's the problem. And again, I'm not saying that to try to force blame on anyone. Again, I'm really not trying to attack anyone. I'm talking about overall as a collective. I think this is more so the problem as opposed to what's actually going on within social media. Now, before I go any further, don't get me wrong. I know there actually truly are toxic tendencies within social media. And that is, people who are genuinely being fake, lying on social media, people who aren't being their authentic, honest selves, people who are lying about about money that they have when they don't have the money. People who saying that they're so happy because they have all these materialistic things, but they're actually in a deep, deep depression and keep trying to buy certain things to make them feel worthier, etc. All of that is lower self behavior. All that stuff that I talk about is on the podcast, right? Trying to have external validation to feel an internal void. That never works. And that is a principle that happens on social media when people are trying to buy stuff to feel validated. People are trying to present a certain image of themselves to feel validated. Yes, that's the evil that comes with social media. But again, that's those creators, that's those quote unquote influencers. That's their business. That's their journey that they need to heal on. And I think, not to get too side tangent, but them going through this journey of social media, that's their part of their healing journey. And they're on their own timeline to wake up, to have that their social media presence serve as a lesson and a wake-up call for them to heal. But that's their own journey that has nothing to do with the consumer. And I think that's what's different, where it's our responsibility as a consumer to be mindful and to control what we are consuming. It's the same thing, which I didn't even plan this, but it just hit me right now. It is the same thing when it comes to your diet. That's a very common thing on social media. You hear like, your diet is more than what you eat, right? It's what you consume, it's what you watch, it's what you listen to. And it's true. It's the same thing as someone who's being mindful of what you're eating to fuel your body. It's the same thing as what you're being mindful of consuming on social media. And again, the podcast you're listening to, what TV you're watching, what music you're listening to, the people you're hanging out with. All of this sort of stuff comes down to the consumer, because I also feel like the same argument that's with social media can be argued about anything. You could say that there's a lot of toxic people in the world, and that's why you have a poor influence, and that's why you were never successful, because you're around poor people. Okay, I don't mean poor monetary wise, like money wise. I meant poor, like, I guess, people with not good character. But you could say that, or you say, no, like that is what you chose to be around, and that's what you chose to digest, and that's what you became. It's the same thing with social media. It's like, okay, you can complain about this low vibrational behavior that's happening on social media. There's low vibrational happening with people in real life. So it's what you're deciding to be around. It's the same thing how you decide who's your friend in real life. It's the same thing who you decide to surround yourself with in social media. Who are you following? So it's you monitoring what you're digesting on social media, and you having the awareness and observing and having the discipline to say, hey, this person isn't serving me. They're making me feel like shit. They're not helping me feel inspired, motivated. They're not educating me on anything. They're not making me laugh from their content, whatever it is. They're not bringing you value in one way or another. That is your responsibility to remove yourself from the situation. That's not them to stop feeding that to you. That's you to stop. That's your responsibility to stop eating it. And I think I'm really getting hyped up about this, but I think that's a beautiful and a very prominent and important life lesson that can be carried way beyond social media, right? You don't need to eat what someone's feeding you. It's your choice of what you want to eat or not. So I think that's a really big thing with social media, getting a little bit off tangent there. But I think that when you kind of also get in that state of being like, look at all this negative stuff that's on social media, look at all this fake stuff that's on social media, like I'm consuming and it's really affecting my mental health. I'm sorry, but this is kind of where I have the really tough side of my personality, where I'm super, super, super passionate about you choose the way you feel. You choose what your life is. Like, you are never stuck. You always have an option for change or for growth or for a different direction if you want it. And that's exactly what I mean here. I can't help but feel like people are just wallowing in that victim mindset when they are complaining about social media. I'm sorry, I'm saying it. Again, I'm sorry if some of you feel like I'm coming for you. I really don't mean it. I'm really trying to speak on this on a wide scale, because I'm speaking with so much. I know it sounds sometimes like I'm yelling at you guys, but it's because I say I speak with passion. I'm sure it sounds like I'm speaking with force, but I promise it's just love and passion, and like I'm just caring about what I'm saying, and I want everyone to not feel so defeated by social media. And when I'm like giving my friends advice or my siblings, like I tend to get tight like this, because I'm like, I just want you guys to feel it, which I know whatever isn't the best delivery, but I can't help it. It's my passion. So when you're in that victim mindset, it's like, I never, when I catch myself being in any sort of victim mindset, I'm like, it makes me want to gag. Like, I think, for lack of a better term, I think that victim mindset is the most unattractive thing in the entire world. When I hear people speaking from a victim mindset, I'm like, do you want me to come rub your back? Like, go cry me a river, like, do something about it. And again, that might sound insensitive, and I'm not trying to have that as a blanket statement for all cases. Like, I understand that doesn't apply to every single scenario in life, but a lot of the things that people play victim mindset about, they actually do have a choice to change, but they're just playing a victim mindset and they lay down. And I think that comes from my childhood of just being taught to be tough. Like, again, I kind of had a tough childhood, and my dad was very hard on us and stuff, even though I love the man to death. So I just feel like, to me, it's like, no, I'm going to stand up and fight. And that's kind of what I feel with social media a little bit. It's like, yes, you can sit there and whine and say, oh, it's making me feel bad about myself. Like, I don't have that. Like, get your ass up and work so you can have that if that is what you want. And I guess I just feel so strongly about that, because I feel that all the time. People are like, oh, I don't have that car, I don't have that lifestyle. Do you want that lifestyle? Yes or no? Do you genuinely want it? Is that what's truthful for you? If yes, do something to create that life. We are creators of our reality. Like, I think, again, segueing, another huge thing is comparison on social media. That's a huge thing that people say, that they compare, like, again, back to that video from TikTok, like, she has all these new bathing suits, which also, by the way, in the video, the thing, I know that she was talking about Morgan Rose Moroney, I think is how you say her last name. She's Australian. You guys might know her. She's married to Steve Cook. I love her. They have a swimsuit line. So, like, it was the Instagram post to, like, promote the swimwear line. So I don't know if the girl knew that, but I was also like, that just goes to show, like, everything is it's subjective, and, like, you have to take it in the context it's in. Like, she was wearing a bunch of different bathing suits because it was her company, but whatever. But I do feel like that still holds merit in terms of, like, not letting social media get to you, because it's all, you have to, like, keep it in context. But anyways, the whole thing about comparing is a huge thing, which I could do a whole other episode on this, kind of how I did one of, like, stop letting, like, other people's opinions get to you. Like, I think it was called letting go of other people's opinions. I want to do a similar episode in terms of talking about, like, releasing comparison with other people. But that's a huge thing with social media, is people feel so triggered by comparison and seeing everyone else on that app as competition, as opposed to feeling it as, like, inspiration. And again, that competition and comparing, that is the ego, because the ego feels put down by other people. The ego doesn't feel like we all can win. The ego is black and white. The ego is this or that. The ego is they're winning, that means I'm losing, which is completely not true. And the ego also feels that need to compare, of feeling like, and you guys, I feel like this was also circulating on social media. Maybe you guys haven't seen it or heard of it, but kind of like the sunset, the beauty of a sunset doesn't take away from the beauty of a flower. Like, they're completely two different things. Are they beautiful? 100%. Does the beauty of the sunset take away from the flower? No. Does the beauty of the flower take away from the beauty of the sunset? No. Like, we're all in our own lanes, kind of what I talked about last episode. Like, and just because there's a potency in one of our lanes doesn't mean that there's a deficit in someone else's lane. Like, we can all win. And I think another episode I want to do is a lack mindset versus an abundance mindset. And that's kind of when you feel that way of competition of this or that, like, they have this and that means I don't have that. That is living from the lack mindset of, like, since they have it, that means there's not enough for you. When you fully adopt the abundance mindset in life, like, that is when you understand that there's enough success to go around for everyone. It's possible for everyone to be successful. You should be stoked that they're winning, because that means it's possible for you to win too. That sort of thing. And I think that's really the mindset shift that goes such a long way. And I think kind of, seeing someone with, like, a quote unquote perfect body, whatever that means to you, that doesn't mean that your body is any less beautiful. And I think more so than anything, the biggest thing for me was switching that narrative, and instead of being also the saying, comparison is a thief of joy. Instead of being like, whoa, I'm stoked that for me, I'm driving an old 2009 Infiniti because it's, like, my family's car that's here at this house. And for me, I'm thankful that I have a car that I didn't need to pay for. Like, there's a car that I can drive right now as I'm, like, still trying to build up what I'm doing. But then when I see something online and I see someone with their brand new Porsche Cayenne, which is my dream car, I could easily feel shitty and be like, frick, like, I still don't, like, I'm literally driving around a 2009 Infiniti that is crusty as hell, and they just got this brand new Porsche Cayenne. Like, who am I? My life sucks. Like, all this sort of stuff. And it's like, I could take that mindset again, to my previous episodes of the law of polarity, how life is just polar. There's like two sides to the same coin. I could look at it that way, or the exact opposite mirror way to look at it on the other side of the coin is to see that as inspiration. And that's why I'm huge on why I personally love social media. I think social media is just a pool of freaking inspiration of being like, wow, look at what is freaking possible. And this is why I love social media so much. And like, that's why I feel called to be so a part of it. And this also reminded me of something else I totally wanted to say in this episode, a whole other story, which I'll probably get into. Maybe I'll end with it. But I see social media so much as inspiration now. And I think it's what keeps me going. And like I said, it shows me what is possible. And so changing that narrative instead of being bothered and having your ego be triggered because someone else has something nice, be happy for them, be stoked for them, root for them. Because again, the more that you're putting positive energy into this life, the more what you're going to get in return. Also a book that I'm reading called Think and Grow Rich. It was like, there's nothing that's going to, the only thing that can truly stop me from living an abundant, wealthy life is that negative energy or projecting negative energy towards other people. So like, if you're just happy towards other people, that's going to do nothing but help you experience that same abundance that they are. So I just see, social media is like a huge pot of a ton of inspiration that really keeps me going and pushes me to be better. I see people traveling. There's things in life that I didn't even know existed until I saw it on social media. I'm like, whoa, that's real life that exists. Like, let me see if I can look into that and see if it's possible. What does that mean? And again, things are glorified on social media, right? I'm not going to lie about that, but that's the same thing with anything else that's worth consuming. Think about a movie. That's the whole point of a movie that makes it worth watching, is because it's a little bit heightened, the details are a little bit more dramatized, like it's more potent, but that's what like engulfs you in the experience and makes it worth watching. Like, that is the beauty of that art form. That's the art of a movie, and that's the art that comes with social media. Like, there is a performance aspect of social media, and I think that's what also bothers me a little bit when people think that it's fake of social media to do that. You could say the same thing about anything. You could say the same thing about a play, of being like, that's fake, like they're really building that up, like that's not really what's happening. It's like for the sake of that moment for the play. And that's when I say like everything's in context. Like, was that, that trip as glorious as it looked in that 15-second reel? Probably not, but it's the highlights. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the art of social media and videography and cinematography. You could see the same thing, that photographers are a scam because they're capturing the 1 second pure moment, which didn't actually capture the whole entire nature of the event. That's the point of photography and of videography, is to capture that beauty. And I think my next point that I have is like, just simply appreciate social media for the fact that it allows us to appreciate that something was perfect in that moment in time. Was it maybe perfect the whole, like I'm saying, that whole 7-day long trip to Fiji? Maybe not, but can we just appreciate the beauty in that moment for what it was? Like, for that, you know what I mean? Like, that was a present moment in time. Like, can't we just appreciate the beauty for what that was, even though it didn't stand for everything as a whole? It's like, that's kind of what I feel about it. And again, then I feel like the argument is, yeah, well, I get that, but the influencers who are posting make it seem like it was like that all the time. Okay, well, maybe they are, but I feel like a lot of the times they aren't. It just was never addressed, right? Like, I feel like very few times people are like, this was the best trip of my life for all 7 days. They're probably like, beautiful time in Fiji. That's your perception that you're extracting from that, of being like, oh, it looked like that all 7 days for all 24 hours each day. No, like, that was your perception as a consumer that you made the assumption on. And that's what allowed you to have that takeaway. So I think that it's, again, where I say it goes back to the consumer, and it's our responsibility to be responsible for what we're consuming. Like, and I think it's up to us to hold that space of awareness and mindfulness of saying, okay, this is a 15-second clip that is supposed to stand for the good parts of their whole entire trip. And I truly, when I scroll on social media, like, that is my constant filter of like, okay, this was the best of that best. That's beautiful. Let's appreciate that, and let's get inspiration and remind us of the good that's happening in our world right now, of the beauty that's around us. That's what I take from it. Like, I don't sit there like making me feel like crap, like they had the best 7-day trip ever, and like when I went to Hawaii for the 2 months, it wasn't all butterflies and rainbows. Like, that's your fault for being ignorant to it, I guess, and like making an assumption on something that you don't know the full story of. So I think that's a huge thing of keeping that awareness that it's just simply a moment in time, and the awareness of like, this is just meant to appreciate the beauty of that perfect moment in time. And that's it. And like, even if it, I don't know, I also see the beauty in things, because again, I really compare social media is very much so the highlights similar to photography and videography. And I love both of those things, because even if something wasn't perfect, it gives you a mental escape for something that is perfect. And I think it gives me hope. I guess I can't speak for everyone, but it gives me hope, and it just makes me happy, and it brings me peace to see that. So I kind of see the same way that I see the beauty of photography and cinematography and like the art that comes with making something look a picture perfect moment. I see that translated to social media. And I kind of already touched on this, but the fact that how when you watch a movie, it's like, you know, it's not real. Like if something's scary, it's like, don't worry. At least for me, because I hate scary movies. If it's a scary movie, I'm like, oh, don't worry. Like it's not real. That's kind of what I tell myself with social media. If I find myself for some reason getting in a really mental hole, I'm like, this is simply for the sake of creating a piece of content. And there's nothing wrong with that. That is the nature of content. Because also, you guys, I just want to say, do you guys think you would enjoy the consumption of social media as much if you were told all of the negative parts that went along with that moment in time? I feel like, because then once you see the good and the bad, it just neutralizes the charge of that piece of content. And I just feel like everyone wants everyone to be more authentic and more organic on social media, but then at the same time, they're the same people who are then hating to the fact that like then that person isn't perfect or something like that. Like, I don't know. I guess I feel that way. Like, we want all these people to be more relatable, and then once they are, you tear them down because they've exposed their vulnerabilities and what they're not perfect for, I guess. And so then it's kind of like a double-edged sword. It's like, well, what do you guys want? Like, what's going to make you happy? And that's where I feel like it's really a big, again, I'm not trying to place all the responsibility on the consumer, because the influencer and the content creator has a ton of responsibility for the message that they're portraying. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying, I don't think it's only the influencer's responsibility. I do think there's responsibility on the consumer. And I think also, because I hate when people have that victim mindset where they feel stuck, you can't control how influencers show up on social media. You just can't. So that's why I'm trying to also hopefully have this episode to have you guys bring awareness to your guys' reaction, and hope to help you be able to scroll more at peace, or be more at peace with social media as a whole, and have you guys control what you can control. You guys control your controllables, and the last point that I had written down is like, to stop wishing and take action to be better. Like, I think, again, social media makes people have their dream body or their dream life or their dream income or their dream job. And it's like, we feel like, oh, like they have it, that will never be me. So you feel shitty for not having it. Like, stop wishing that you wish you had these things, and like, take action, put in the work, have the discipline, put in the work ethic, take action to create the life that you desire. Like, if Livfiit stands for anything, like, I want this podcast to prove and stand for the fact that like, you can create the life that you desire. You can be happy. You can feel truly at peace if you take ownership of your life and you put in the action to do so. And I think that's a huge thing with social media, like there's no need for us to sit here wishing and to feel shitty about ourselves. And there's every need to feel inspired and to take action to be better, and to, live these lives that invite us, that we are drawn to. And I guess another point that's coming to my mind as well, I think social media makes people feel like they want a life that they don't necessarily want, which is huge. I think sometimes at the result of social media, people think that A, that's what they should want, B, that's what's cool, that's what's accepted, or that if they have that life, they're going to be seen as such. And that goes back to the whole concept of like external validation, right? That comes with the ego. So it's kind of tapping into your higher self and knowing like, okay, that person's life is really cool. Because this happens to me. I'll see someone, I'm like, damn, their life is really cool. They're like super well off, like they're happy, all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, okay, and that job is probably easy for them, all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, damn, like that kind of seems like a really good life. And then for a second, I'll sit there and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, am I going down the wrong path? And then I always think to put myself in their shoes. Like, how would I actually feel if I truly had their life and was living their life every day? How would I feel? Would I feel happy? Would I feel at peace? Is this in any sort of fraction of alignment with any sort of my desires, in alignment with any sort of my desires that I had as a kid, in alignment with any sort of my interests, passions, affinities, likings that I have for things? And almost always the answer is no. And so that's when I say, okay, cool. I'm going to be happy that they found a life that they love and that they're working towards and that they work for them, that works for them. That's great. But that doesn't mean I need to take it on. I don't need to feel any pressure to take that on because it doesn't align with who I am. And it's the same thing. Something that I'm pursuing right now, some people might be being like, damn, that seems like a really good gig. But if they thought to have their life be as public as mine or share as much as my internal intimate thoughts as I do, they would be like, that's my worst nightmare. And you know what I mean? So I think having that awareness and taking that extra step to think that one extra step makes people be like, okay, you're right. Like, I actually don't want that. Like, good for them, but that doesn't mean I want it too. Like, I don't need to feel shitty for not having it because I don't even want it. So I think that's a really huge thing. Like, sometimes social media feels like people should want certain things even though they don't want it at their core. Like, even if it's not in alignment with their authentic self. And I think the same thing, like, I truly believe that some people like have more of an affinity for finer things. Like, people want the Prada bag and that there's nothing wrong with that. That's like what's in alignment with their true self, what they feel is an accurate representation of their true self. Sometimes a lot of the times it's a masking and an ego thing, but for some people it's just truly what they genuinely feel aligned with, right? But for me, I've never had a call or an urge for designer things. Now, could I sit here and feel crappy that I don't have a Prada bag? For sure. But then I think to myself, is that actually what I want though? And my answer is no. And that's okay. And that's the beauty of it. That's what makes the world go round. My friend Joanna says that, like, that's what makes the world go round. Like, the diversity is the whole point of life. And that's what makes us each have our place. And that's what seamlessly makes up the whole. Like I say, if we were all the same, think of a pie chart. We would all be way too, well, I guess that doesn't work. But like, think of if we were all the same, we'd be way too on one side of the spectrum crumpled up, that there would be no even diversity to fill up the whole space in a balance. So I think that's a really big thing to remind yourself of as well. Like, when you find yourself getting down, don't feel pressured because of things that you're seeing that like you should want it. You know what I mean? Like, take the second to ask yourself, like, practice self-awareness. You know what I mean? Like, tap into yourself, talk to yourself, check in with yourself, see if it's what you really want it. Like, I think the problem is so many people just blindly consume and are so easily overtaken by like other people's opinions or like what's accepted in society, and also, you know, like, just, I don't know, just other people's opinions. And don't get me wrong, like, it makes sense as to why we want to be accepted by society. Like, at the end of the day, we're a species that is a communal species. Like, we want a sense of belonging. We want to feel accepted. Like, that's why we have a natural care to a degree of other people's opinions. But we just need to practice the awareness to not be crippled and to not lose ourselves at the expense of being so overwhelmed by other people's opinions. And like I said, like, there are some real downsides to social media that I think is just the nature of social media. And I guess I'll touch on those two as well, because I don't want to seem like way too biased. I don't think this episode was biased, but like, you know what I'm saying? But I think there's negative things with literally anything in life. Like, the nature of anything has a good and bad. Like, that is a polarity of life. Like, I don't know how else you guys want me to explain it. Like, and that's the beauty of it. Like, it should be that way. And like, I was always in denial for so long that they're like, there's only good in this world. Like, there's just good. Like, you can focus on the good, all this sort of stuff. But like, we need the bad to create the contrast to know where there is good. And that's what's beautifully, seamlessly completes the whole. And so there's even like bad things in the medical industry. There's a lot of bad things that are in the medical industry, but like, there's so many good things as well that help us. And so that's the same thing with social media. I think for social media, this is the first time in history where we are thrown so many options and varieties all at once in the same place at the tip of our fingertips. And I think that just inherently, like I'm saying, the nature of that has perks, but also also negatives. And I think that's what's really overwhelming towards a lot of people. And the second thing that I have also is, like I said previously, that people genuinely are fake or putting up a front, and like, that's them acting out of their ego. So don't get me wrong, there are things inherently less favorable about social media, but it's that same with that's the same way with anything. Like, you could literally say that about exercise. Like, there's so many benefits about exercise, but again, when you do it too much, could be really detrimental. Or when a specific person with a specific health condition does a specific type of exercise, it's detrimental. So just everything in life is so relative and so subjective, and that's why I never, like, things aren't black and white, things are subjective, things are gray. And I think reminding myself of that also gives me peace to not feel like way overwhelmed and like overtaken and possessed by a certain viewpoint that like makes people so, like all up their panties all. I haven't said that phrase in so long. I don't know if my siblings and I used to say this, like, oh, are your panties all up in a bundle? What? Maybe that's not a good thing to say. I'm just realizing that I haven't said that in so long. But you know what I mean? Like, when some people are way too invested in their specific black and white viewpoint, it like makes them way too just like testy and upset, So the one thing I want to say, a little piece of story that I want to say before we finish off this episode, because this was a long one and I wasn't really expecting it, but I just was flowing. But before through my come up of social media, even though I still feel like I'm in that phase, but whatever, when I was like initially really trying to fully be consistent with social media, the biggest thing that debilitated me for so long was the societal's viewpoint around social media. And for example, like I'm talking about the societal stigma around social media, the fact that it's not healthy for people's mental health, which made me feel like, am I contributing to this problem, right? Like, no matter what I post, like, am I still contributing to the problem? Like, am I part of the problem? I also thought about how I just feel like the stigma of people who are influencers or content creators are inherently egotistical, narcissistic, self-absorbed, which again, I think there's merit to. I think I definitely have a degree of narcissism. Is that the word? Because I'm able to like stare at myself on the screen and to edit, but like also at the same time, or is that just me having self-love? You know what I mean? Or is that me just seeing this work as honestly work, in that opinion, but also I guess I don't mean like 9-to-5 job work. I mean work like when someone says like soul work. Like, I see this as kind of an art that I'm doing, and it's a form of self-expression for me, and I do feel like it's a way for me to share my truth and a message that I feel super called to share, and this social media is just simply a medium for me to do so. And again, I just kind of feel like I've developed and worked up my self-love enough to be able to hear myself and see myself and listen to myself and like still feel collected and okay enough and comfortable enough to put myself out there to be consumed by thousands of people. And, but I guess just overall, like that was a mini tangent. Just like I was held back so much by these beliefs about social media society, and it got to the point where it made me second guess who I am, my intentions, why I'm showing up on social media. It made me be like, why do I have this genuine desire in my heart to pursue social media and form a social media personal brand? Like, does this make me a bad, selfish person because I for some reason have this uncontrollable calling to be on social media? Like, that was something I went back and forth with so many times. Like, it truly made me question my own character because I had this genuine desire. Like, I was so confused because I started to take on society's stigmas and programming and preconceived ideas and limiting beliefs about social media. I started to take that on, and like it was to the point where I was so close to not. It took me years to like wholeheartedly jump in with 2 feet into social media because I was always going back and forth with that in my mind. But then my true self would always pull through, and my heart would be like, but you love this, like you want to do it though, like you have such an urge. And so I kind of got to a point where I had to remind myself of my intention, why I'm showing up on social media. Why am I doing what I'm doing? What is the message that I have to share? What's my intention with being here? What's my purpose? What's my mission? What are my values for being here? And I had to remind myself of that and kind of tune out that outside noise and say, I'm not going to accept everyone else's outside opinions, and I'm going to do what feels good and right for me. I know my intention, and that's truly all that matters. And so I guess also social media was something that changed my life. Like, I love social media and I feel so called to be on this space because it's what completely changed my life. Like, and it makes me get all like worked up about, because like not only was I in such a dark place when I found social media, but like it gave me so much hope, and like I have yet to come across anything else in life that has made me feel such an uncontrollable yes, like that's what I want to dive into more than social media ever has. Like, and I was 16, 17 years old when I had that urge, and it still has never gone away. Like, I have the chills just talking about this right now, like, because I mean it, like with every ounce in me. I don't truly know what it is, and it's when I feel so thankful to be, you know, here and alive during this lifetime when we have social media. But that's why I feel like I came to this earth during this time period to be a part of the social media wave. I really do, because like for me, like I'm saying, I know some people, it's like it's been bad for their mental health, but for me, like that was the thing that got me out of a negative headspace. Like I was so inspired by social media after I got cheated on by my first boyfriend, which you guys know the story 15,000 times over, forwards and backwards. And that I saw these women on social media who were strong and in the gym, and they created their own business from nothing. They created something from nothing. They created something from a passion, a mission statement, a value system that they had within themselves that they were able to build an empire from. And that lit me up. I thought that was the coolest thing, and it has given me so much inspiration to this day. I'm constantly getting inspired through social media every single time I'm on my phone. Every single time I'm on it. And it's just like, for me, it's like, I guess since I had such a positive first impression with it and it just motivated me and fueled me so much, it's like I just hope to continue that wave, because I truly think social media is just however you use it and how you consume it. It could be used as something amazing, and it could be used for something terrible, as with anything in life, like I'm saying. And I just feel really passionate about using social media for good and for healing and for positivity, because that's how it was, you know, that's how I used it, and that's what it did for me. And I think it's a super powerful thing to be able to connect with people from all over the world and be able to get insight to other people's lives that you would have never been able to tap into otherwise. And I think for me, you guys, like I say, I have had a hard childhood, but I feel so blessed to have been raised and surrounded by the self-discipline, improvement, and strive to be your best as I have. And I know there's so many people in life that haven't had that privilege. And, you know, I think that's what social media can be so amazing for. I don't know why I'm getting emotional, but like thinking about how there's someone who's, I've had the chills like this whole, whatever, like thinking about how there's someone from like a really unsafe neighborhood in Chicago who their parents are, you know, barely making it, doing the bare minimum every day. They're surrounded by people who have no care to be better. They're surrounded by people who are just trying to escape through drugs, alcohol, sex, and like, but what a lot of people luckily do have, like in our day-to-day, is a smartphone. And the fact that they are able to access social media and hopefully can see things that inspire them, that, you know, show them that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Like you can create a prosperous life. Like that is so unbelievable to me. And I think that is the beauty and the healing and the angelic nature that comes with social media. And like for some reason I'm thinking about my dad, who really came from nothing, and his dad was a gambler and all this sort of stuff. Like there was a ton of love in his house, don't get me wrong, but there wasn't. My dad really broke out of the mold with his family for kind of being one of the first people to truly like accumulate real success. And, you know, for him, my dad is a physician. I guess we'll just go there. And he, you know, back at that, in that day and age, again, don't get me wrong, this was a whole different time period without technology really as a whole. Not nearly as progressive as it is now. There was no social media, but just for him, like his options seem so much more limited, of being like, I could be a doctor to be successful. I could be a lawyer or a dentist or a pilot. Like literally that's what he thought growing up, because he was like, I need to escape out of this lifestyle. I want a better life for myself, my wife, my family. And I need to find a way that's going to be able to support that. And those were the 4 options that he has. And now thinking about how many more options social media has given us and how much inspiration social media has given us, like I'm personally forever grateful, and I will forever choose every day to see it in that light, because it truly is a choice. Everything in life is a choice to see how you choose to see it as. And I really feel passionate about that. So that was an unexpected turn, you guys. I wasn't expecting to go this far off. I guess this shows how passionate I am about social media, but geez, I didn't know I was this passionate about social media, but it really is a moving thing. Like it really does move me, and the just the power it holds it's kind of almost mind-boggling, like if you truly think about it. So for the affirmation for this epi, I make the choice daily to consume content that inspires me and motivates me to achieve my dream life. I make the choice daily to consume content that inspires me and motivates me to achieve my dream life. Again, have this also be your sign to filter out the people that you follow if need be. If someone's not serving you or adding value to your life, remove them. And that goes way beyond social media, you guys. That is just an overall principle of life. I'm following people that makes me feel good, right? I follow a lot of people that help with my mental growth, my mental expansion. I follow people who I just admire their work ethic. I admire the work they've put in to create their own dream life. I follow people who I admire their journey in life. Just everything. I choose to follow people that really benefit me, or I truly take from in one way or another, that they provide me value. And I think there's so many different types of creators on social media. Pretty much every single niche, any single thing you want to be surrounded by, anything you want to learn about, there is a niche in a pool of creators that are in that space. So make the effort to find them, surround yourself with them, follow them, that sort of thing. And I really hope it will help to elevate and kind of purify. That's a beautiful word right now. Help to purify your social media experience. So thank you guys so much for watching and listening. I hope that this really hit for you guys, and I hope it kind of helped you see things with a little different perspective and through a different lens. You guys know I love you so much. I appreciate you guys beyond words. If you guys enjoyed this, don't forget to leave a rating and review, and subscribe if you haven't already. Share it on your story if you would like as well. I'm sending you guys so much love, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.